Okay, so I was recently reading Rutger Berman's book, Humankind, A Hopeful History. And I gotta say, I am somebody who you would generally call an optimist about people. I think in general things tend to get better, and that most people tend to be trying their best to do the right thing. I also think that's where most evil comes from. So many people see the world as bad versus good, or is the bad guys versus the good guys, but what people really need to understand is that most of the time it's the good guys versus the other good guys. In general, I think that if you stop and pause at any action you'd deem immoral and try and find a way to frame that as a moral action, you will find some way to do that. And I think that people in general try. I do think a lot of times people are lazy. So this book is kind of right up my alley. It makes a lot of similar arguments as to the role of human nature, and it very convincingly, I guess I should say, argues against things like the Stanford prison experiment or the one where they shock people. I forgot it. I can probably find a clip online.
In fact, it was a reenactment of a powerful experiment conducted by Stanley Milgram in 1963 to look at how normal people can commit atrocious acts simply because they're following orders.
If you're unaware what the Stanford prison experiment is, it's basically where the official story is that a psychologist was trying to see the difference between how power corrupts people, basically. And what he did was assign a bunch of students randomly as guards or prisoners. And within a few days, the guards started mistreating the prisoners. That's the official story. What actually happened was the guards really had to be goaded into this kind of thing. You know, again, the book gets into it, and I would say that the author is right about this. But my overall impressions of this book is, despite the author's best efforts, I end up agreeing with him. Yeah, this is not a very convincing argument to me, mostly because one of the running points throughout the book is the author keeps bringing up. He keeps basically setting himself up against the establishment that says that people are duplicitous and evil. And the symbol he has chosen for this is Richard Dawkins' book, The Selfish Gene. The Selfish Gene is a book about how morality evolved. The author is literally arguing against a straw man throughout this entire book. The selfish gene doesn't mean that a gene that makes people selfish. The selfish gene means a gene that is selfish and exists in other people. So if I have a gene that is selfish, that also exists within you, that means I am going to care about you because we both share that selfish gene. It's really not that complicated. I think Richard Dawkins himself has explained this several times.
Okay, so how can selfish genes support kindness? If genes are striving selfishly to make more copies of themselves, how can a gene achieve this selfish objective by making its bearer behave altruistically? One part of the answer is kinship. An altruistic gene can spread through the population so long as the altruism is directed at other organisms that have the same gene. In other words, at family. So, selfish genes build parent animals who protect their young. In human terms, parents who'd rush into a burning building to save their children. This is called kin selection. The other part of the answer is reciprocal altruism. You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. When animals live in groups where they encounter each other repeatedly, genes for returning favors can survive.
That right there, that is the huge hang-up I have about this book. I know the author probably didn't read The Selfish Gene if this is what he took from what he took from it is it makes people evil. And yes, I choose to believe that this is simply incompetence. So I'm left reading the rest of the book going, I don't know if any of this is really true. It's like he said something that I know isn't true, so now I'm super on guard against everything else the author says. I don't. Maybe it's a case of a lot of this knowledge isn't exactly new to me. I've already read that the Stanford prison experiment is bullshit in, one of the books I already mentioned on this channel, Hugo Massey. I think I'm pronouncing that right, but I am a dumb American who can't speak French. Not Born Yesterday, which really makes a lot of these same arguments, but does it well. And that's more about how people aren't as gullible as you seem to think. I guess that's my biggest problem with this book. It's clear that the author either didn't read or didn't understand a concept that he spends a lot of time arguing against. And as such, I really don't know if the rest of what he says is in any way credible. Like, okay, maybe your philosophical insights are 100% on point, but your biological ones are totally wrong, so I don't trust you. And your psychological ones are, I think you're right, but not for the reasons you committed. So that's why I have to say about this book is, despite the author's best efforts, I end up agreeing with him. Somehow I think it's fitting that it took me a while to read about this book, despite the fact that I follow a lot of people who make this same basic argument, because, Steven Pinker understood the selfish gene.